hello, hello, hello. Before I start, let's play a little game. I know there are not only developers, I see designers here, so let's play a little game about CSS. I'm going to show you 4 different pictures, and you're going to raise your hand if you think if it's CSS or not CSS picture, okay? Raise your hand if you think this is a CSS picture. Okay. And who thinks it's not CSS? Raise your hand. Okay. And what about this one? Is it CSS? And what about this one? Is it CSS? Okay, I see a few hands. Well, a few of you were right. Just one of them is not CSS. And other 3 I created with just pure CSS in, I don't know, 2 hours or something like this. So, hi everyone, I'm Julia Miocene. I'm a product designer and UX engineer at GitLab. Currently I'm working at the UX Papercuts team. It's a team of UX engineers. Also, I'm a Google developer expert on web, mostly in CSS. I'm a Woman TechMaker ambassador. I'm a YouTuber, small one. And most importantly, I'm a CSS artist and animator. And today I want to show you that actually nothing is impossible. And my journey in CSS art started in 2018, and I can draw like in traditional way. But I know CSS. And I always wanted to create some characters, like with real movements, with real emotions, like real characters. But I can draw, again. I know only CSS. So I created a lot of different characters with just CSS and nothing else. This is just the part of them. And also, I create videos on YouTube about my CSS art, animations, and other stuff. And if you want to learn something like this, you can just subscribe to my channel. There can be more videos about this and maybe about some design. I don't know. So I created a lot of different characters, as I said before. And last year I thought they actually all flat. They're not real. They have no volume. And I always wanted to create something real, like real humans, real animals, real things in 3D space, but still, I can't draw. I have no idea how other 3D editors work and how to deal with them. And I know CSS. And I was thinking, am I able to do something in CSS like this? And I tried. And at the end of my talk, I'll show you what I did, and you will tell me if I succeeded or not. Okay? So these are 5 steps to create a real 3D character in CSS. And we should start with the basic 3D object. And when you open any 3D editor, you see a bunch of simple objects like cube, sphere, or something like this. And let's see what happened if we rotate our normal rectangle in CSS. I guess it should be something like a cube in 3D space. But basically, it's not even in 3D. Do you see the volume here? It's basically shrinking, but rotate this object. And we have a perspective property, which is great. It adds some volume, and if you need to rotate just one object, it's fine. You can use this. But if you need to rotate a few different objects in 3D, it doesn't work. They don't overlap each other because they don't live in one 3D space. Actually, it's just a projection of 3D transformation. It's not a real 3D yet. And we need to define a 3D space to start working with 3D in CSS. And for this purpose, we have transform style property. By default, it's flat. It's fine, because we don't need 3D everywhere. But we can use preserve 3D value. And we'll make our space a 3D for everyone. For example, how it works. Our objects live in one 3D space, and they overlap each other. Looks cool. And as I said, we don't have any objects in CSS, only this surface and nothing else. So if we want to create something basic like cube, we need to create it from the scratch. And basic cube consists of 6 faces, as you all know. And with just one div, we can create three faces. Div itself creates one face, and we can use 2 pseudo elements to create 2 another faces. So we need 2 divs to create one cube. How it works? I color all these faces with one color, add borders, and rotate them to the right places. But I guess not all of you do something like this in your day-to-day job, and I need to explain what happens here. So for transformation in CSS, we have one property, transform, to transform elements in CSS, and it has a lot of different functions like rotate, translate, skew, blah, blah, blah. But for 3D, we actually need just 2 different values, 2 different functions, rotate and translate. And also you can use separate properties. They already available, and you can use them. But you need to check how many manipulations you need to do. Because if you want to do a few different manipulations, you need to use transform property and add all of these functions one by one to this property. And you can even repeat them and create something like this. This is a pretty simple animation with just one property and a few different functions, and they apply one by one. So I have my cube, kind of cube, it's not a cube yet, and I just rotate each face around the root element, and that's it. Here is our cube. So we use just one property or function, depends on what to use, rotate or translate, and that's it. Here's our cube. And yes, it's still CSS, so we can use any other properties. We can use backgrounds, we can use gradients, we can add images if you want, but I'm a pure CSS artist, so I don't use any images, only backgrounds and some gradients. And I can color this cube and create something like a face. And I can color not only one face, I can color all the faces and create something like animal, I guess. And this is basic cube, so I can just copy this and paste a few different other cubes around this cube and create something like this fox. And actually, I was creating the fox, but my husband said it's something like a dog, so I have no idea what is this. You decide and tell me what the hell is this. Next step is the light source. And sorry, in CSS, we have no such thing as light source, and we can imagine this and color our object, our first object, based on this light source that we don't have. And I tried a few different places where to place this light source to color more efficiently, and I found the perfect place for the light source. It calls something like a butterfly, but I'm not sure, I'm not a photographer, but some photographers on the internet said it calls butterfly. It's the place where it's somewhere in front on top of the character. It allows us to highlight a face and the top of our character equally, super light, and both sides gonna be equally highlighted. It's the perfect place for any 3D CSS character. And if you place this light source somewhere else, or you add a few different light sources, or 2 different colorful light sources, it will be pretty tough to color your character. You can spend a few days coloring this character. It's tiring. Just don't do this. So imagine that this red dot is our light source. You can imagine that this is the softbox in our CSS photoshoot studio. And I just draw lines from this light source to the edges of our character. And color front side and top side equally with the brightest color that we have. Both sides will be highlighted equally, so they have something like a medium color that we have. And you can use darker color for the backside of this character, but I imagine that I have a color reflector on the backside of this character in my CSS photoshoot studio, and backside has the same color as sides. And the bottom side has the darkest color, almost the black, because there are no light source there. So I have this matrix of colors, 3 shades per each color. If I create something more complex, I add custom properties with these colors to use for my characters, but if you create something like this box, you can just use colors. And the next one is the shadow. For the shadow, I draw same lines from my light source to the floor through edges of my character. And I just recreate this shape in CSS. And for this purpose, we have clip path. Clip path helps us to create different shapes and mask our objects. And it has a lot of different functions. For cubic character, I use only polygon function. It requires a list of coordinates of our shape, and it creates different complex shapes. And it's a mask function. So if I change anything inside, like blur it, I don't see any difference because it masks everything. So I put this clip path to the third element of my shadow, and I blur the shadow. So I can create a pretty complex shape with clip path, but still I can blur it. For the shadow on the character, I use gradients, a lot of gradients. I could use something like a new element and color it differently, but I like gradients, so I use gradients here. And for this complex shape, I create something like, I don't know, like a Lego of gradients. I use 2 different gradients for the sides and 1 linear gradient for the center part, and create a super cool shape. And you should remember when you create shadows that the coolness of the shadow is the opposite of the coolness of the light source. So if the light source is cold, the shadow will be warm, and vice versa. And here's my fox, dog, whatever, but my character. And if you're not familiar with creating anything in 3D, you can just try to create something looks like your character, photo this thing, and try to recreate it in CSS. If you don't know how shadows work or colors work, it's also fine, and you can learn a lot from this. Next step is skeleton, and actually it's the most important part of all of this talk, because if you want to animate any character, you need to create a really nice skeleton. It's the fundamental of any other characters and our bodies too. And I think you saw something like this. This is an artist dummy. There are a lot of them in IKEA and any other shops. And it really helps us to create the same body structure in HTML. So what do? We create a root element, the human. Inside this we have neck, inside the head. Neck we have head, inside head we have ears, inside head also we have some face elements. So we have shoulder, inside the shoulder we have elbow, inside elbow we have hand, inside hand we have finger, inside finger we have nail. Does it make any sense? Okay. And if you want to create a character with some props, you need to put these props inside the proper elements. So if your character has a hat, you need to put it inside the hat element. And if your character has something like a sword, you need to put it inside the hand element or whatever it is. So I took our first character from this talk, added a few more cubes, and created something like this. And if I don't do this nesting thing properly, it will look pretty strange, doesn't it? And if I want to create something more natural animation, I need to animate and move every body part separately and try to imitate that they are not separate, that they are human beings. And if I nest all the elements properly, I can use just one animation and it looks fine. And for my first demos, I didn't do nesting properly. And you can see it here, for example. Actually, it's falling apart. Like all the body parts, bicycle parts, everything just falling apart because they weren't nested properly. And for example, here, pay attention to the coffee cup. Where is it? I have no idea. If I'll do it right now, I'll create two different coffee cups. One nested inside the table and another one is, nested inside the wing element. And I would just switch them because for some time this bird holds it, so it should be nested inside the wing. And sometimes it just stays on the table and it should be inside, nested there. And why I do all of these things? Because I need joints. We move our body parts because we have a lot of joints that join our body parts. And for this purpose, we have a transform origin property. It creates something like a point on the element, and all the transformation will start from this point. By default, it's in the center of our element. But actually, we can place it anywhere. It could be inside the object, it could be outside the object. We can even use Z-axis and create something in 3D with this property. And for flat animation, I have one trick, how to create a perfect joint. You have two different elements, for example, shoulder and an elbow. You overlap them to create something like a circle, and place a transform origin point in the center of this circle. And when you animate, it looks perfect. And you can animate things, and they will look like real things. But if you mess up this, I think we need to call emergency, because this person has some troubles with their elbows. And another trick. If you create not two pieces of the body parts, a few different smaller parts, and place transform origin points in the center of these joints, you can create something like a sausage-like shape and use it for styling your characters. And believe me, no one would ever believe you it's just CSS, because it looks not like CSS, it looks like something real. And for cubic characters, we should place our transform origin points in the places where we can't bend them. Sounds not super clear, but for example, for knees, we need to place a transform origin point on the front side because we can't bend it this way. And all the time when you work with joints, you need to test it and do some little animations because you need to try something small before you start doing big animations. And let's test. Fine. Legs are also kind of fine. So it means we can start animating. And I know it could sound scary animating something in 3D with just CSS, but actually these flat animations are much more harder to do because I need to animate a lot of things here. It's not only rotation and translation. I also change colors there. I skew elements. I change opacity. I do a lot of different stuff there. And for 3D animations, you don't need all of these things. You need just animate, rotate, and translate, and that's it. And for animations, we have animation property, as you all know, I hope. And it uses keyframes. Keyframes, it's an add rule that requires a list of different keyframes, and browser will draw everything between them automatically. So you just need to write a bunch of keyframes, and you can place any amount of keyframes as you want. And wow, it looks not so good. Never mind. Well, for big animations where I have a lot of different things happening on the character, I use, again, custom properties where I put all the animation attributes there, because I don't want to change every other animation when I need to change the timing, for example, or easing function. And keyframes, they are extreme points of our movement. And for example, you can find any image of walking cycle on the internet. You can record the video and find how do you move and find these extreme points. And for example, if we create a super basic jump where we have just 2 points, like the lowest one and the highest one, and browser will draw everything between automatically. And for the most simplest walk, we need just 4 keyframes. They may look like just 2 and they repeat each other, but actually this is the difference of the hands and legs. So I collect all of these keyframes in one frame somewhere, count them, and I divide 100% by this number, and this is the duration of our keyframe. Because in CSS animation, we have only percentages of our animation. We can say, like, do something in 1 second or something like this. So we need to know the duration of each keyframe. So for animation, for the basic walking cycle, I just paste all this rotation of the joints into my keyframe and get something like this. Sounds pretty simple. And this is the right place where we need to think about the mood of our character, because it really changes how many keyframes do we need, how complex it will be. And you can choose any character you want. It could be something like angry walking cycle, it could be joyful walking cycle, or anything that you want. And every animator creates something like a walking cycle, but I'm not a regular animator, I'm a CSS animator, so I'm gonna create something like a dance. And actually, it's CSS, so I can change the whole appearance and create a dance floor. Okay, sorry for this. Next step, the final step is sculpting. And of course, these Minecraft characters are pretty funny and you can play with them. You can create different characters based on one. But I wanted to create a real human and real human animation. So I took my previous demo and I created a few more cubes. I separated body with torso, chest, and hips, because when we, human beings, move, we move this body part separately. Plus I added hands and neck and some other body parts, doesn't matter. And they are all separated. It's on purpose, because I'm gonna work with every body part separately. So I take every body part, I incline all the sides of this cube and cut all the edges. And I do it one more time for every body part. And I try to find the right place for these sides. And for creating the shape and cutting these edges, we have a lot of different ways in CSS, but I use these 3 main properties. One of them is clip path. I already talked about this. Another one is mask. Mask is the same thing as clip path. I mean, it also masks everything that goes inside of this element, but you can use their images, but I'm a pure CSS artist, so I don't use any images. I use only gradients for this. And of course, background, because we can also use gradients there. I use polygon function for clip path and linear gradient for mask and background. And what I do next? I look how it goes. Kind of like a human, yeah? I hope so. For curves of the body, I need to create something like a chain of divs. And it sounds like the same that I showed with sausage-like shapes. I create the chain of divs, I nest them inside each other, and when I rotate one of them, others rotates automatically, and I need to think about them, how to connect them to each other. So for any curves of the body of my character, I use these chains of divs. And here is what I have. And if I take every body part and look at this from the top, it looks kind of like this. So it's rectangle or square. And it's still my graphish. I wanted to create real body, so I add 4 more edges to every body part. And I do the same thing. I rotate them, I incline sides, and I cut all the leftovers with clip path, mask, and background properties. And this is the time where I need to think about coloring my character, and I need to remember about the light source and all the other stuff. Because previously I had my bluish character, and now I have much more sides, and I can't even distinguish them between each other because I didn't have a system. I used just 4 colors, 4 color shades for my character, and now I need to color them properly. I have 4 different colors for this demo. It's the skin color, hair color, clothes, and socks. And I put them all into custom property because I want to change them. And I use color mix function. If you're not familiar with this, I highly recommend to remember about this function. It's really powerful. And I just color every side of my character, every part of my character with this color mix function. I mix all the colors with black or white. If I need to highlight, I use white color. If I need to make it darker, I use black color. And this way I can change all the colors of my character, just like in browser, changing one color, and it changes automatically, which is super cool. So, this is my character. It's pure CSS. There are no JavaScript, no images, nothing else, just pure CSS, HTML, and nothing else. And I don't know if we succeeded or not. You can share your thoughts on Mastodon, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever you want. I'm everywhere as Julia Miocene. I'm the only one in the world with this name and last name, so you can find me easily. And these are links that you might want. First one is link for the slides. Second one is my site where you can find some tutorials. There are going to be more tutorials, YouTube for my tutorials, and CodePen for all the demos that you saw previously, and this running girl too. And if there's just one thing that you take away from my talk, I want it to be that actually nothing is impossible. And if I created something like running real girl in just CSS with nothing else, I think you can do even more. Thanks.